Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, looking at winter weather advisories here along the Alaska Range for tonight, and actually for tomorrow and into tomorrow night there, for gusty winds and anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow. Also, winter weather advisory for anywhere from 1 to 5 inches more snow falling here, western Prince William Sound and areas along the Seward Highway, with the heaviest snow amounts in and around Portage Valley expected there, and then tapering off on down to Girdwood, and next to nothing probably, or anything real light on the west side of Turnagain Arm. And a winter weather advisory here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, including Yakutat, for snow tonight into tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon, or through tomorrow, and then a winter storm warning for heavy snow all over the northern Panhandle, Juneau area. Could see 7 to 10 inches of snow. That's for tonight and into tomorrow. And winter weather advisories over the inside waters here of the central and southern Panhandle for snow, lesser amounts, and in the morning area there. And a winter storm watch is out for Hyder for, let's see, that's out for Tuesday, for actually starting tomorrow night, Monday night into Tuesday, for anywhere possibly seeing a foot of snow during that time frame there. And Bristol Bay winter weather advisory out for tonight and for tonight into early tomorrow there for the Kuskokwim Delta, for anywhere 3 to 5 inches of snow as that system moves through with blowing and drifting snow, reducing visibilities to a half mile or less at times. And St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, storm warning out through tonight into tomorrow morning, actually until 6 a.m. Tuesday. So through Monday night until 6 a.m. Tuesday. Winds gusting 60 miles an hour, maybe another 2 to 4 inches of snow, and visibilities down to a quarter mile or less at times. And winter storm warnings also out here through the, or along the Yukon River Valley areas, the Delta right on up into the Grayling area, Galena, Tanana, and into the southern Koyukuk Valley. And that'll linger through tomorrow night here in the southern Koyukuk, or actually through Tuesday, and until tomorrow afternoon here for the areas down to the southwest. Look for anywhere from 7 to 12 inches of snow possibly falling in these areas over the next couple of days, with gusty winds, especially out here to the west. Won't be so much wind here over the central interior, just a heavy snow expected there, but the lower visibility, especially tonight and tomorrow here for the lower Yukon River Valley and the Delta. And then up on the Arctic coast there, central Arctic coast, that's a wind chill warning out for tonight for wind chills anywhere from 50 to 65 degrees below zero, with breezes of anywhere from 10 to 20 miles an hour. And now finally moving on to satellite imagery. Here's the front pushing the moisture in, warmer temperatures, and the fairly strong winds here, as high as 65 miles an hour in the exposed areas of the southwest coast, and kicking up around 50 miles an hour over northeast Bristol Bay, Augustine Island, in around Iliamna Lake. So we see the higher elevations seeing even higher wind gusts than that. And about 0.6 of an inch of precipitation fell in the form of rain Kodiak Island today. Port Moller, though, picked up about a couple inches of snow now, so some of that moisture getting up into southern Kenai Peninsula, southern Cook Inlet, and advancing northward there into possibly western Prince William Sound. If it hasn't started now, probably definitely will here shortly. And a lot of mid and high level clouds streaming in northward here into the eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range, and winds gusting 55 miles an hour today or higher, especially at Gamble there, with snow and blowing snow. Really not having reached the area yet there, but there was some blowing snow in the area there. And then south of the front, more of a mixed precipitation starting to develop here over the Pribilof Islands, on down to the eastern Aleutians with the warmer temperatures there, mostly in the form of rain down at sea level. And then colder air and snow showers wrapping back in with gusty north winds out over the far western Aleutians. And rolling that through again, temperatures starting out about 50 below zero today, North Slope into the Arctic Village area, and overnight lows in Chalkitsik down around 50 below over the Yukon Flats. So that's warming today with the clouds coming in, and pretty cold though, about 40 below on the central Arctic coast. So with 15 miles an hour of breeze at Barrow, pushed that wind chill down to about 70 below for a time earlier today. And yet again, you can see a trough kind of developing here, rotating around the main low center, increasing the showers over the eastern Aleutians to just south of the Pribilof Islands. And that will continue, well, about right in this area tonight, or currently today. And then along the front, mixed precipitation trying to develop here south of the front in the milder air. Rain showers over the Alaska Peninsula, rain Kodiak Island, snow blowing snow here, developing southern Kenai Peninsula, right on up into the northern Bering Sea there, St. Lawrence Island, with areas of light snow, really light southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range there. Flurries, and that's about it. And that whole area here advancing northward into south central Alaska. Isolated snow showers diminishing over the Panhandle, and otherwise not too bad there with high pressure over the Yukon. But that will begin to give way. Strong southwest flow aloft going to push moisture right on into the area late tonight, early tomorrow. For tonight, though, mostly dry. Chance of moisture increases on the north coast tonight. North Gulf Coast, definitely looking at snow with the winter weather advisories, Yakutat and into western Prince William Sound. You can see once that front lifts northward, downsloping winds really knocks the moisture or the precipitation down, and just maybe some snow showers and less wind here over the Bristol Bay Area and Kuskokwim Delta. But in advance of the front, still very windy again. Winter storm warning continues St. Lawrence Island. And for the heavier snow associated with the frontal boundary into the central interior, rain showers or areas of light rain, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, and also out over the Aleutians, areas of rain, central Aleutians, or numerous showers. Not so much over the Fox Islands there, kind of in a break, also for the Pribilofs. Probably shower free, but strong north winds and snow for Shemya at 2 to about Kiska. That continues into Monday, tomorrow here out west, kind of a break here. This will probably be mixed precipitation, more than likely here. Kind of hard to say, but definitely rain showers continue for the central Aleutians up to the Alaska Peninsula. And kind of a new system forms. The frontal system breaks free and moves up into the interior here, with a batch of moisture sliding northeastward there across the Porcupine River, the Yukon River, into Arctic Village. So definitely warmer temperatures up in that area, but staying mostly fair on the Arctic coast. And look for strong winds and precipitation. Again, this is what's going to bring the winter storm warning into the Juneau area, and then the watch for the area toward Hyder, and the advisories everywhere else. Well, that kicks through, and Tuesday you've got a trough following it in behind, but another frontal system right on its heels here spreads a chance of rain into Prince of Wales Island coast late. Kind of a break here, southern Alaska, maybe some clearing in the afternoon for Cook Inlet. Warmer temperatures for sure, even into the interior here, but stays quite cold from the north slope on out to the Arctic coast, and a big low keeps it pretty windy and unsettled here over the Bering Sea. But an improvement for St. Lawrence Island. Lows tonight anywhere in the minus 30s to mid minus 40s here. Northern interior warmer, upper 20s to mid 30s. Bristol Bay, mid to upper 30s for the Alaska Peninsula. Teens and 20s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow into the mid 20s here for south central Alaska. Single numbers in the Tanana Valley, and below zero, but not nearly as far below tomorrow over the areas south of the Brooks Range. Colder on the Arctic coast. Lows the following morning. Shade below zero, the Tanana Valley, about 30 to 40 below North Slope Arctic coast. Teens and 20s, southern Alaska, warmer over the Panhandle and the Aleutians, followed by highs in the, bounced through too far. Highs Tuesday afternoon, still pretty chilly, anywhere 25 to 35 below for your highs on the Arctic coast. Single number central interior, mid 20s to upper 20s, south central Alaska, and 40s in the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here, a lot of IFR streaming on into the interior here, especially up here over the, from the west, Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, right on up to the along and south of the Brooks Range tomorrow. North of the range though, VFR until you get out to the central eastern Arctic coast there, back into the marginal. Otherwise a lot of IFR here, central Bering Sea right up to the coast and down into the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, IFR Kodiak Island, North Gulf Coast, Gulf of Alaska, on up into Prince William Sound and southern Cook Inlet, and probably along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska range here, at least at some point in the day tomorrow. And IFR getting over to Yakutat and starting to, this area here for the afternoon moves right on in with good southwest flow aloft as the high pressure ridge shifts eastward. And so IFR for the Panhandle in the afternoon and back across the Gulf, Kodiak, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, southwest coast, all the Yukon Delta, right up along and north of the Yukon River Valley there to the eastern Brooks Range. VFR, central western North Slope on out to Kivalina, Kotzebue, marginal just south of Kotzebue, probably Selawik in the IFR. Lots of IFR out to the west. And moving ahead to Tuesday morning, a lot of IFR here, central eastern Bering Sea from Matka Island eastward, all the way to Kodiak, Alaska Peninsula. Bering Sea side could be some marginal, but that's about it. Otherwise, IFR here, as you can see in the forecast, southern Alaska, kind of the eastern interior, not too bad VFR there, kind of cutting off. Again, right along the Alaska range, so the central upper Tanana Valley looking pretty good, 40-mile country. IFR still for the Panhandle. And that lasts right through the afternoon. So a real change here coming up that's going to stick around at least through Tuesday afternoon over the southeast coast and southern Alaska. Still a zone of IFR right up northeastward through the interior, eastern Brooks Range, Arctic coast. Better conditions, say a Liktok and the west side there. Possible VFR on down through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island right on the edge, a lot of IFR, central northern Bering, marginal VFR for the Aleutians. And for Anaktuvuk tomorrow, north side of the mountains there, north of the pass, out the northern entrance, VFR, IFR south side, marginal in between, and shaping up the same for Adigan as well. Southern approach, you'll see the lowest conditions, best probably to see some IFR. And Lake Clark and Merrill, eastern entrance, both passes IFR at times, at some point tomorrow, and then otherwise marginal. And for rainy, same pattern, IFR in the eastern approach, and windy, marginal becoming VFR. Isabel, marginal VFR, Mentasta, VFR, Tanita, VFR, Portage, IFR the entire day. Chilkoot and White really coming down, marginal becomes IFR probably by mid to late morning through the afternoon. Freezing levels 2,000 feet, 2 to 4,000 feet, Kodiak Island. Almost up to Nunivak Island. It's a little bit of warming going on here at the surface along the coast and central Bering, and look for some pretty good icing with good southwest flow coming in as this high pressure aloft shifts eastward there. So looks like considerable moderate moving into the Panhandle along with gusty winds, and areas of here above about 6,000 feet south or southern Alaska, especially in the southwest, kind of slipping on up to the northeast there. And then kind of a batch here with an upper trough of about 3,000, probably the mixed variety there from the Pribilofs down to the central Aleutians. And the jet stream, again, showing that the stronger flow here, the southwest jet, kind of splits 50 knots, 90 knots, but the real strong push right into the Panhandle. This branch carrying the moisture northeastward, and at 9,000 feet here, 20 to 35 to 40 knots southwesterlies here, and you can see southwest flow right up into the interior. Southwest flow stronger over the Panhandle, and at 3,000 feet, 35 to 40 knots there with a pretty good energetic trough with a low center just east of Kodiak. southwest behind that, 45 knots into the North Gulf Coast, otherwise lighter over the interior. And the low out over the Bering Sea, 25 to 35 or so here on the eastern side, and 35 to 40 northwesterlies on the west side. Turbulence-wise, moderate chop, all of the Aleutians, and also here North Gulf Coast, definitely the Panhandle, and along the southwest interior there was light isolated moderate chop with some areas of considerable moderate there, especially St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait, but pretty smooth over the eastern interior.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the day-night band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or a radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side, and we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon, depending on...
That's that swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, especially, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery. Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
But this looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. And we can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here, so you don't get the green or the purple colors there. But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well. We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime. The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about Dehne and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of change out here, and from yesterday. And it looks like with the, of course, with the winds, warmer temperatures, especially the winds, the advance will stop here, at least for the moment, and may even begin to shift back to the north and maybe to the north west there over the next couple of days. Same thing, Cook Inlet, milder temperatures coming in, so that should slow the advancing of the ice and the increase in the ice in Cook Inlet on down into Kamishak Bay there. Of course, today, southeast winds gusting up to 50 miles an hour this afternoon, so it's already, we'll probably start to compress it back and reduce the ice in that area. For the coastal water forecast for tomorrow, good gales here along all of the southeast coast. 35 to 40 knots on the south coast out of the south, southeast 40 to 45 knots on the north coast with seas anywhere from 17 to 20 feet. Gales, Clarence Strait, southeast 35 tomorrow. Small current advisories for Stevens Passage, southeast 25, seas 5 feet. And by contrast, pretty light winds, Lynn Canal, north at 15, 3-foot seas. They'll become south at 15 on Tuesday. Otherwise, central southern inside waters, southerly winds 20 knots, 4-foot seas. Small craft advisories on the south coast for west winds at 25. Seas still up around 20 feet here all along the coast, but the winds on the north coast southerly at 20 knots. Prince William Sound, northeast 25 knots, seas up to 6 feet. We've got storm warnings for the eastern North Gulf Coast tomorrow. Enough gradient there to produce a sustained 50-knot wind out of the east, seas 20 feet. And good gales here on the western North Gulf Coast. In the case of the Barren Islands, up to 45 knots sustained, and northeast 45. So windy tonight and tomorrow here for southern Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay. In fact, southern Cook Inlet, 40-knot winds out of the north in the forecast, seas 13 feet, and 30-knot winds, pretty brisk on the areas north of the Forelands. Much lighter winds in store for Tuesday, though, for Cook Inlet, west at 10, southwest 10 for Kamishak Bay, seas subsiding down to 2 feet in those ice-free areas. Southwest 20 knots, Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast. Small craft advisories for the Middleton Island zone, southwest 25, west 15, Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, up the east side, winds will be southwest at 25 knots, northeast 30 knots, Shelikof Strait, and then from Akiak here on down toward Castle Cape, in that zone, southeast 20, south to southwest 20 knot winds for the Alaska Peninsula, east 20 for Bristol Bay. And for Tuesday, southeast 10 to 20 for Kodiak, southeast 15 knots here southwest of Kodiak into Bristol Bay. Small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula, south to southeast winds 25 knots. Fox Island, small crafts tomorrow, south 25 to 30 knots, strongest here over toward Nikolsky, and 25 to 30 knot winds there for Adak and Atka. Kind of get a little squirrely for Adak here as it becomes north, especially back to the west, 30 increasing to gale force northerlies there for the western Aleutians. And on Tuesday, we've got west winds 30 to 35 knots here for the western Aleutians into the Adak-Atka area, becoming a little more southwesterly though on the Bering Sea side of those islands, and west-southwest 30 knots. For the Fox Islands, seas running 9 to 18 feet. Southwest coast, east-southeast 25 knots tomorrow, brisk wind advisories there. Gales for St. Matthew Island, northeast 35 knots. So that'll actually push the sea ice southwestward, but southerly at 20 for the Pribilofs, northeast 40 St. Lawrence Island. And then for Tuesday, northeast winds continue up in this area, 40 knots, St. Matthew Island and St. Lawrence Island. Small craft or brisk wind advisories here for the southwest coast for 25 knot winds, east at 20 for the Pribilofs. Central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west winds 10 knots, west side northwest at 10, 20 knots here coming down to Cape Thompson. And then Cape Thompson to Wales, north winds at 30. That holds through Tuesday with 20 knot winds, Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, and pretty light winds for much of the Arctic coast, although the eastern Beaufort Sea coast looking west at 15. Winter storm warnings along this front into the central interior tonight, and winter weather advisory, western Prince William Sound and the Bristol Bay area, Yukon or Kuskokwim Delta tonight, and things improve for Tuesday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.